Welcome back to the One Day at a Time Gambling Addiction Podcast. Today I want to talk about something that's kind of an issue for people who are just thinking about whether or not they should quit gambling. And that is, can I gamble like a normal person? In short, the answer's absolutely gotta be no. But there are many people who argue against that, and I'll go over kind of their opinions today, as I just had a discussion recently with someone who had that opinion. I'm Rob, and I'm a compulsive gambler. I made my last bet on November 12th of 2022, and I've made it my purpose to share what I'm doing right in my recovery with you, the audience, so that you can do the same if you're recovering from a gambling addiction or any addiction and you're seeking to live a better life full of self-improvement, full of health, and full of value. If you want to quit gambling but you're not quite sure where to start by smashing that subscribe button, because then we can take on this journey together, and it'll also help me to spread my message to more people so that more people can join this community and we can tackle the challenge of gambling addiction together. Most people realize that if you're in a Gamblers Anonymous program or if you're a gambling addict, that you have a really severe issue and you're not really like others when it comes to gambling. And then there's some people who believe that all they need to do is control their gambling and, keep themselves on a system or limit themselves financially so they can only gamble what they have, something of that extent. And I think a lot of gamblers, if they're honest, will say that they've tried something along those lines. I mean, I have. Back when I was in my gambling, I would, only carry cash so that I wouldn't be able to withdraw on cards. I'd set deposit limits on different apps. The problem is that with so much access to gambling, you don't really have to use just one app. And if you're not setting a deposit limit across the board, being incredibly cautious, there's always a way around it. There's also always a sports book that you haven't signed up for yet, a casino you haven't checked out yet. There's always a way to gamble if you want to do it badly enough. Which is why, even when I had the safeguards of only carrying cash, if I wanted it badly enough, I'd figure out a way to get money, whether it be, borrowing, using, getting a loan, borrowing from friends or family, or even going back home and getting my cards and then coming back. If you want something badly enough, you're going to find a way to do it, which is the sad reality of it, to be honest. In the Gamblers Anonymous pamphlet here, they say that a compulsive gambler can never gamble normally again, because the first bet to a compulsive gambler is like the first drink to an alcoholic. Once you cross that line and you start gambling, they're saying that people who are truly compulsive gamblers are not going to be able to slow down and play by a system or like bet units like I see these sports betting gurus doing online. If I was thinking about betting units when I was spinning slots and playing blackjack, I don't think I would have ended up in the position that I ended up in, because the people that are using systems like that, they're not really gambling addicts. They're not even necessarily gamblers. They're thinking in their own heads that they're using math. Now, in reality, they are gamblers because, they're playing a game of probability. But the way that they see themselves, if they do see themselves as like true degenerate gamblers, well, I just don't know if I agree with that. I've seen the far end of the spectrum in terms of betting with risk, betting without thought, and, using a unit system and trying to gamble like a normal or professional gambler. It just doesn't add up to me. Recently, I did talk to someone who was a compulsive gambler that said he was able to control his gambling. And he wanted to remain anonymous, so I'm not going to mention him by name, but his story was really interesting to me. He basically said that he would gamble these crazy amounts. He was backed by stakers and he was a poker player, and that he would end up going and gambling on things that weren't necessarily poker, ruining his bankroll, ruining, his reputation with the stakers and whatnot. So he recognized that he was a compulsive gambler pretty early on, and he says that he estimates that he lost about $30,000 between the age of 15 and 28 gambling, which is a hefty sum. He bet and won huge amounts playing baccarat and only went up and down with time, eventually losing it all. But he said that in current times now, he restricts himself to specific deposit amounts. He has family assisting with finances. He's in good financial shape, but he's not taking care of everything himself now, so that there's the temptation of gambling. And I thought that was really interesting because he said he's like 2 years without any like huge major events and his life's pretty good overall. Now, I don't think that I can do that, but I also don't know if I should judge everyone else based on my own experience. We all see the world through our specific lens, but that's not really what the world is. So with gambling addiction, there is a chance that maybe you can gamble normally. I mean, I think it's far-fetched. And the reason I think it's far-fetched is because of how easily you can fall down that slippery slope like we've all done in the past. But, hearing a story from this guy, it was an eye-opener. Is he a compulsive gambler? If you think he is, let me know in the comments. I'm going to say yes, but I'm going to say he hasn't reached a point, or he hasn't allowed himself to reach a point where he's in a bad situation, or he hasn't allowed himself to reach the point where he's in an unsavable situation. Now the question needs to be asked, since we have all these possible safeguards, is there a way to gamble normally? I say no, but that's just for me. Do you think that you can gamble normally ever again? If you have been calling yourself a compulsive gambler, if you've been going to meetings, if you've had these terrible life experiences, is there ever a way back? Because I think it's an interesting discussion that we should have. The book says 100% no, but real life examples say maybe. So is the book always right? And do we need to be following the book word for word? Or is there a chance that you can actually put safeguards in place and gamble responsibly? So me, personally, I don't recommend gambling at all, of course, and I'm never going to gamble again. But it's really interesting to think about. You know, if we actually set limits and stuck with them like normal people do when they go to the casinos, where would we be? The question that I've been thinking about is, would we even enjoy it? If I was going to take just a couple units and place them on a bet and I lost, and I can't chase after it, well, what's the point? Or even if I was taking the bet down, to a small amount, doing some small bet experimentation, what's the point in that? Why would I want to gamble like a normal person? That's a question that I've been asking. So, the people that say that they've gone from gambling huge and gambling like a gambling addict to going and gambling like a normal person, I would want to ask them why. What's the point for you? Are you getting the same feeling? Are you getting the same satisfaction that you got from gambling before? Now that you're gambling with, caution and being conservative? I just can't see it. It's like when my friends would talk about like their gambling, and I'd be like, wow, like that sounds really boring, because it sounds like, a smaller version, a very beginner version of what I thought was my field of expertise. So the question that I'd like to pose to you as the audience is, would you ever want to gamble normally? If yes, why? What about gambling normally is doing enough for you that you'd be willing to, kick your recovery to the side and go and, place a couple $5 min bets on a blackjack table? If you're not willing to gamble normally, well, I agree with you. But tell me why as well down in the comments. I'm really interested in making this more of a discussion format rather than me just, blabbing on and on about my experiences. I really want to know, can we gamble normally ever again? And with that, it's business as usual for me. Let's keep getting better together, one day at a time.